mean, not a coincidence as such. Frances Nagley is a real person, and you know, what we do is at conventions, you know, reader-writer conventions, there's always a charity auction, and the writers will donate stuff to the charity auction, and it gets auctioned off, and the proceeds typically go to a literacy project in whatever locale the convention is. And typically writers love literacy charities because we figure, well, you know, teach them to read, they're going to buy our books. So we're big into literacy. We think it's a sound principle. And what you would normally do is you would, you know, donate whatever, you know, a signed movie poster or a signed first edition or whatever. And then somebody got the idea of donating promises. You would donate the promise that the winning bidder would have his or her name as a character in your book, in your next book. And the real Frances Nagley is, or was at least, a nurse from San Francisco, a very charitable woman, did all kinds of good works, and she bid in these auctions repeatedly, over and over again. And she must be in a dozen books, I would think. John Connolly, for sure, Zoe Sharp, me, it's a way of charitable giving, and she's a very charitable person. I think now she's retired and probably spends all her time doing charity. And I love that because, first of all, it really helps whatever literacy project or whatever the thing is. And I've done diabetes charities and all kinds of things like that. And it gives you a ready-made character name, which I find very difficult to come up with. I'm really bad at coming up with names. And so typically I enter as many of these things as possible. And most of the characters in my books now are auction winners. In this book, personal, Tom O'Day, Rick Shoemaker. There is in this book, you know, when you publish your first book, nobody's ever heard of you, so you don't go on tour, because what would be the point? You know, you'd show up and there'd be nobody here. They send you on tour for your second book, hoping that 3 or 4 people will show up. And in America, I toured for my second book, and that was 1998. And in Houston, Texas, there's a little specialist bookstore called Murder by the Book. It's a crime bookstore, a really good one. And I went there, and there were maybe, I don't know, 10 or 15 people there, including a 9-year-old girl with her parents. And the year after, she was there, aged 10, and the year after that, she was 11. And I was there last year, and she's 25. She's graduated college, and she's already working. She's got a job. And she came up to me afterwards and said, you know, I've been here every year since I was 9. And I said, yeah, no, I've seen you every year. And she said, so I think you should put me in your book. And, you know, basically, I couldn't think of a better reason for being in my book. And I've had some dedication. Her entire life, practically, she's been involved with research. So I said, sure, I'll put you in the book. What's your name? And she said, Casey Nice. And I thought, wow, that's a great name. You know, that's a sort of Ian Fleming type of name. So Casey Nice in this book is really her. And you know, you start out, the name is the name, and you're very aware that these people are, I mean, she was just dedicated. The charity winners are very nice, charitable people, so you kind of want to make them nice if you can. Although I didn't with Tom O'Day, because you know, when he reads it, he's going to have a shock. He's going to wish he hadn't bothered bidding on that one. But you know, I'm very aware that these are nice, really nice, charitable people. And in Casey Nice's case, just a nice kid, you know. So it really did actually influence how I wrote her character, because first of all, she was young. But I never make a plan, I never plot it out, I just see what happens. So she's young, she's a bit vulnerable, she is anxious, you know, she's an anxious young person. And part of the sort of subplot of the book is, you know, Reacher in a rather curious way trying to get to the bottom of why is she anxious, and she's taking pills for it and all that kind of stuff, and he's like, why are you taking these pills? So she's a little bit of a very slightly dysfunctional, anxious person. And first of all, that made it unlikely that Reacher would have sex with her, because he would see that as too exploitative. It was clearly a sort of senior-junior mentor type of relationship. And then I was worried about, what would young Casey actually think of the way that I portrayed her. But actually I saw her after the book came out. Because by a completely bizarre coincidence, 2 weeks ago, I guess it was it 2 weeks ago, or was it last week? I can't remember. Last week, I guess. What is the date today? 17th. Yeah, so last Wednesday, 1 week ago, I did this thing at Yankee Stadium. Baseball games always start with two ritual things. First of all, they sing the national anthem, and then they have some kind of celebrity throw out the ceremonial first pitch, which they asked me to do last Wednesday. So last Wednesday I was at Yankee Stadium throwing out the ceremonial first pitch, which is nerve-wracking, unbelievable, because it's about from where I am now to those guys standing at the back doors. That's about the distance, and you've got to throw the ball right at them, and pretty much you could do that probably if you just did it in your backyard or something like that. You could do it quite easily, but with 56,000 people watching, it's a little more difficult, especially because for sure if you screw up, it's going to be on YouTube 33 seconds later. And 50 Cent did it. You can Google it, look for it on YouTube. 50 Cent did it, and he was so pumped up that it sort of flew out of his hand sideways and went miles. And he was a laughing stock for weeks. So I was completely nervous about it. And my daughter came with me, and she said, "How are you feeling?" I said, "I'm really nervous." And she said, "Look, just pretend it's a hand grenade. And you're throwing it at Margaret Thatcher." And that was great, dead on, bang. So anyway, that went all right. But the point of the story is that by some incredible coincidence, the catering manager at Yankee Stadium, the catering is done by an outside corporation that caters for all big sport events. That's Casey Nice's dad. And so, he could have been anywhere in the country, but he chose to come to Yankee Stadium that night and brought Casey with him. So I said, "Are you okay with," I said, "Have you read the book?" And she said, "Yeah." And I said, "Are you okay with how you turned out?" And she said, "Sure, no problem." So, that's America, where to be anxious and gobbling antidepressants is considered perfectly normal.